It's imperative that we understand the biblical relationship that God created between man and woman. Now, when it comes to what God has established, He created man in His own image and likeness. And He created woman to be an image that came from Him. And together they could become one flesh. And once this relationship was severed through sin, God shaped this differently. Men were made to go out and work. Men became the head of woman. And through childbearing, they could be put back in the right relationship with God. Now, when we look at today's society, this is a hard concept when we think about the things that we have morphed into. God wants men to work, to take care of their homes. And for women to be part of this process. And too many lives are missing what this relationship truly means. When we think about before the industrial age, women were home raising their children, and men were out working and providing for their families. And when we went through this change, or this momentous process, to where now children are being raised by society, and men and women are more separate than what God designed from the beginning. I commend women that stay home and raise their children, homeschool their children. Now, there's nothing wrong with public schools, but it's a different level of raising when kids are getting the full effect of their parents. And fathers making good decisions on what type of jobs that they're taking so they can be home with their families. And these things are so critical and important when it comes to that child being properly raised. There's a difference between when kids are raised in schools versus their homes in a Christian home. That's not to say that kids can't be raised in public school or even a private school and the parents are Christians. The kids can still be very productive children in society. What God designed is this right relationship for man and woman to be in sync with one another. And too many marriages, they're on two separate platforms. And this is causing great divide in this relationship. The children are feeling the negative effects from this. Marriages are suffering because of this. They're not structured the way that God created it. See, when God gave man and woman, or Adam and Eve, the instructions, when he took them out of the garden, or getting ready to place them into the world, he told them exactly what they needed to do. And see, when we do what God wants us to do, then everything goes, or things go in the right direction. We need to go back home. And when we look at the Garden of Eden, that was the home. That was the promised land, or the promised areas, or area that God had put man and woman, his perfect creation, in protection with him, in his presence. And when we fell out of that relationship, we became separated. And we need to go back home. Well, how do we get back home? We need to do things the way that God purposely designed the marital relationship, and raising children exactly the way God has set forth. And when we do things properly, things work very well. And see, the world, they like to make excuses. People argue they can't take care of their homes off one paycheck. You can do a lot when you make certain sacrifices. You have to look at what's important. Your marriage is important. The raising of your children are important. So God knew that childbearing was very important. We can see how mothers are closely bonded to their children. It's like a life within their lives embedded. It's time to go home. It's time to stay put and do what the Lord wants us to do. Too many marriages are not staying put. They have allowed the world to drift them apart. And this is why we see the issues with children. the problems in marriages, divorces, separations, children acting out, not taking marriage seriously, or doing things that are ungodly before marriage, getting in trouble, being in the wrong relationship with others. It's time to go home. It's time to stay put. So when God returns, we are ready. Our children are ready, and their families are ready. Come now, while you have today, to get your life in order. The Lord loves His creation, and He wants you to be part of His kingdom.